In the last 5 years, hate crime for the LGBT community has risen 112%. So the first thing anyone should be saying within this conversation is solidarity to trans people across this country. When we even have a conversation at the idea of kicking someone in the balls, is that free speech or not? That is clearly incitement to violence.
Also solidarity with the many gender-critical women. And I think the problem in this discussion, and we've seen it demonstrated here, Zach, I dare say, is that there's a lot of me speech rather than free speech. So if it's speech you agree with, then you are happy to...
One is about speaking out against the ongoing genocide, and one is showing solidarity with people
you agree with,
citing why you don't.
Let's just bring in...
This lunatic is the new leader of the Green Party after he won with 85% of the vote. And as this debate on Politics Live demonstrated, like many on the extreme left, he is authoritarian to the core. Graham Linehan was recently arrested at Heathrow Airport by 5 armed officers for transphobic tweets meant as jokes. Mr. Polanski defended the arrest, and he gave the impression he wanted to see Mr. Linehan charged and jailed. He then condemned an attack on free speech after people were arrested for holding up "I support Palestine" action. When his opponent called out his hypocrisy, he replied, "That's different because they are protesting against genocide in Gaza." As his opponent Tom Slater brilliantly pointed out, he wants free speech for those he agrees with, but not for those he doesn't. Write a social media comment he considers transphobic, and he wants you arrested. A trans activist calls for TERFs to be punched in the face. I don't hear him having a problem with that. That's protected under free speech. This was supposed to be a debate about free speech in its entirety, but Mr. Polanski tried to turn it into a debate about trans rights. Any criticism of trans people, Islam, or anything he considers a marginalised group, that needs to be clamped down on as hate speech. That is what he is calling for. Free speech is most definitely under threat from this government without doubt, but the radical left only want their free speech protected. They are all for more draconian laws to silence speech they don't like. And in fact, many of them would like reform criminalised and shut down as a political party. Just take a listen to this.
In the last 5 years, hate crime for the LGBT community has risen 112%. So the first thing anyone should be saying within this conversation is solidarity to trans people across this country who are feeling scared, who are being dehumanised. When we even have a conversation at the idea of kicking someone in the balls, is that free speech or not? That is clearly incitement to violence. The second aspect here...
So that is an ongoing, obviously he's been arrested, but there have been no charges.
Yes, absolutely. And the second aspect here is, and I partly do agree, is around policing. I've had friends arrested in the last couple of weeks for holding cardboard signs saying, "I support Palestine action." And I think it's this increasingly authoritarian moves from the government to ultimately crack down on embarrassing speech for them or things that they don't like. So I think there's two separate issues here.
Yeah, they are separate because obviously Palestine Action has been prescribed as a terror organisation.
But that's then the choice of priorities by this government to prescribe that organisation and then to tell the police this is a good thing to be doing. At the same time as I agree, we should be dealing with violence on our streets, violence against women and girls, making sure that people feel protected and secured. And that requires investment in our public services and particularly the police.
Tom, what do you make of it all?
I think the first thing to say in this discussion is solidarity with Graham Linehan for being arrested for making jokes on social media. Also solidarity with the many gender-critical women who have been harassed by the police in recent years, often at the behest of trans activists who take discomfort at the fact that they've been sticking up for women's sex-based rights. We need to put this in perspective here. We've got armed police arresting comedy writers at airports for telling jokes. And if this was an isolated incident, maybe that would be one thing. But at the moment, in England and Wales, more than 30 people are arrested every single day for things they post on the internet. Incidentally, that's more people than America were arresting for speech during the first Red Scare. If that's not a free speech crisis, I don't know what is. And I think the problem in this discussion, and we've seen it demonstrated here, Zach, I dare say, is that there's a lot of me speech rather than free speech. So we throw Graham Linehan under the bus whilst talking about Palestine action. I agree, people shouldn't be arrested for holding up placards saying I support Palestine action, but I also think
lots of people
that
say they
shouldn't be arrested either.
That they are very different things here.
I mean, they are very different.
The law has changed. The law has changed, and the government has made Palestine Action a prescribed terror organisation, haven't they? So you can't really compare those two things.
I think the law is wrong in various different areas. I just wish that people like Zach would show a little bit more consistency. Hypocrisy.
hold
If
on.
it's speech you agree with, then you are happy
One is
to...
about speaking out against the ongoing genocide, and one is showing solidarity with
one
people
you agree with,
inciting
hold on,
violence
let's just bring in-
against women.
Proving heads need to roll at this point. I mean, we've seen the creeping censorship. And yes, a lot of it has to do with the police. I think the police in recent years have been carrying on like a cross between the Stasi and the Keystone Cops. They're harassing anyone at the behest of anyone who happens to be offended, and that's a big problem. But of
So
course,
are they misinterpreting what the politicians
Absolutely.
want?
I mean, the number of cases I've seen in which they are over-interpreting the law, in which they're going after people, quoting laws that don't exist. There is a huge amount of a problem within the police itself, within the College of Policing and the guidance they're putting out. But also, fundamentally, politicians can set the law. And not only do we have expansive, quote-unquote, hate speech laws on the books, which are being used to crack down on dissent and free speech, we're also adding to them all the time. We've had the Online Safety Act, which has introduced all kinds of new offences, which, yes, was initiated by the Conservatives, but supported wholeheartedly by the Labour Party. You've got Labour now talking about a kind of crackdown, not legally, but in terms of guidance imposed on councils on Islamophobia, which many groups, faith groups and otherwise, have said could lead to the chilling of discussion of religion. So the direction of travel, as far as politicians are concerned, is only in one direction. It's towards more censorship. There's a depressing cross-party consensus on all of this. And I think what we're seeing now is that nobody is safe from this dynamic. If comedy writers, who are known for being pretty robust, who are known for making jokes, can be arrested at airports as if they were some sort of dangerous terrorists, surely now is the point at which we need to talk about ripping up these laws which have so eroded free speech.
Zach, do you think the laws need to be ripped up?
No, I don't think the laws need to be ripped up. And what will